Good evening, I'm Anthony Robart. Welcome to Crime Beat. Tonight, a savage slaying in a Surrey, British Columbia apartment building leaves the community shocked and 2 innocent people dead.
I got off at work. This place was crawling with cops.
We have 6 male adults inside of an apartment on the 15th floor. All what we're saying are victims of homicide.
Christopher's friend called me. Christopher hasn't turned up to play basketball.
Unraveling a multiple murder in Whalley. Who's responsible and why do investigators believe the victims were targeted?
Whole of Saturday comes, not a word from the cops. And I'm glued to the news.
Stating they've made no arrests and have no suspects, police are now appealing for criminals to turn in the killers.
At one of the busiest malls in the Lower Mainland, the bullets started flying. There is a link with the gangland slayings of the Surrey Six.
It really was like a movie script. The number of twists and turns.
I got an anonymous phone call saying be in courtroom 20 at BC Supreme Court at 9:30.
As we speak right now, there are additional arrests that are taking place, and there will be additional arrests throughout the weekend in connection to this file.
This case that's been, hidden from public view and stalled apparently, all of a sudden is bursting wide open.
I wanted everybody to be caught who had a hand in the killing of my innocent son.
Here now is Jules Knox with Surrey 6, the gang hit.
On October 19, 2007, the streets surrounding Vancouver, British Columbia filled with sirens. Emergency crews raced to not one, but 2 catastrophic events that happened within minutes of each other.
So this was a Friday in the fall in Vancouver in 2007. In Surrey, there was a report of an incident where people didn't know what had happened. They thought initially it was a gas leak.
I was the chief in West Vancouver, and I was commuting home from West Vancouver when the alerts went off to us with respect to what had occurred in Surrey. And at the same time, we had an incident in Richmond that came across as an alert too, where a plane had actually smashed into an apartment building just off of Westminster Highway in Richmond. You think the worst case scenario?
Good evening. It has been a night of chaos in the Lower Mainland. 7 people are dead tonight after 2 horrific incidents. It all began when a Piper Seneca aircraft slammed into the 9th floor of this condo building. The pilot was killed and 2 people inside the building were rushed to hospital. Meantime, in Surrey, about 30 minutes later, emergency crews were called to this building.
Do you think that there's a possibility that they're connected at all?
No, they're significantly different. You start thinking of resources that would be required.
We got a heads up that the Surrey Fire Department was code 3 to what appeared to be a mass casualty gas leak at the Balmoral Towers in Surrey.
What's going on in there?
There's just been an incident there. I don't know too much about it.
There's cops everywhere, and we heard that there's a gas leak actually. And then so we were like, oh, let's just stay at a hotel. Yeah, it's just chaos.
It was around 5, 6 o'clock at night. There was a light rain falling. We knew something was really bad because they kept us so far back. Everybody knew this was going to be big. And then it turned out to be much worse than anyone had anticipated.
It was the morning, it was a Friday, and the fireplace technicians were coming to clean our fireplace. My son Christopher said to me, "Don't worry, Mom, I can handle the fireplace man." I picked up my bag, he walked me down to the lobby, and we kissed each other bye. We didn't think anything about it. And I called him back at about 1:45. And he said, oh, they're just walking into the house, and when they finish, I'll leave as planned. I said, well, look after yourself because it's, you know, damp out there, and I'll see you tonight. Okay, love you, Mom, love you, babes, bye-bye, see you tonight. And we put the phone down.
The building manager was looking for the furnace repairman who hadn't come down and had a key fob, and he needed to get it back. He discovered that there were a bunch of people on the floor in this apartment, and I guess the assumption was because the fireplace repair guy was going around doing the inspections for the whole building, that maybe somehow there had been a gas leak.
You know, whether there is an odor up there, I have no idea. I haven't been to the 15th floor at all.
I actually went onto the website of Global and found out that the building supposedly was evacuated. So when I called to find out, they said, oh, you better get out. And everybody in the common room was actually complaining and arguing with the police why nobody was told this.
I left around like 5 o'clock, 5:15, and then I haven't came back since now. I came around to check up to see if we could come back in, but then like all the routes were blocked off, and then I haven't bothered coming back.
I got off at work around 5:30. By the time I came to King George, this place was crawling with cops. I walked to the yellow tape, there was this cop standing there. And I said to him, I said, I need to go in there. And he said, why? And I said, I live there. I go inside the lobby, there's 3 detectives sitting there. And I said, I need to go to my apartment, 1504. I could see like the eyes gone big. And he said, I have to tell you one thing, you can't go on the 15th floor. He said, because it's blocked off and our people are working on 2 floors. As I was going downstairs and I took the car out, Christopher's friend called me. And not 1, not 2, but 4 of them, the entire basketball team. Christopher hasn't turned up to play basketball for the first time since grade 11. He played every day. For Christopher not to go to his basketball game was out of this world. Christopher didn't have my cell phone, I had the cell phone on me. So I'm thinking, I should go down to the cops again. They probably will be able to help me. The same 3 detectives sitting there, and they looked at me and their eyes went wide open. And I said to them, I said, you know, my son was supposed to go to play basketball. I just received 4 or 5 phone calls. He hasn't turned up to his basketball game. And the guy in the middle, he said to me, oh, don't worry, he must be having a great time somewhere with his friends. I looked at him, I was so mad. I said, you do not know my son. He would never do this to me. I said, he will tell me where he is. I'm telling you, my son is missing. He said to me, okay, you go. And as soon as your son comes, we will make him call you.
Just trying to get a feeling for what's going on in the building.
Actually, nothing much. We are locked in our apartment. We don't know what's happening.
Did the police come to your door?
No, they didn't come.
They didn't tell me anything. I had just heard out from the grocery store down the street sort of what happened. They weren't telling me anything at all.
Once the firefighters got into the apartment, they realized, oh my Lord, this is not a mass casualty, this is a mass murder. We had some contacts inside the RCMP. We realized when I had showed up that it was obviously a homicide. The question was how many.
My heart, my brain, nothing is in sync. My mind is saying something else, my heart is saying something else, my mouth is saying something else, my actions are different. I'm shaking, confused. It was now getting past midnight, and I had a cup of tea in my hand. One of my cousins switched on the TV.
6 people are killed in a Surrey apartment building. Police still on scene looking for answers.
My hands were shaking, my cup just went. Everything, like it went into pieces, and I'm looking down and I'm looking up like it's our building.
Police are still combing over a disturbing crime scene. 6 people were found dead in an apartment building this afternoon. Now, initial calls indicated there was a gas leak in the building, but when crews arrived, they found half a dozen dead bodies inside.
The call to 911 came in as a possible natural gas leak. Residents were evacuated, but when firefighters in containment suits entered, they quickly discovered this was no accident. A number of the victims had blood on their faces.
There's bodies are strewn about, right? You know, bodies lying about, and you know, my first thought is that the person takes a step in, they go, oh my God, and get the hell out. We want to understand, how this happened. Is the killer inside? And is this a case of multiple murder-suicide? Is this a case of simply a murder and someone has fled? We don't know any of those sort of details.
Welcome back. As police work to identify the 6 victims in the brutal slaying, a desperate mother waits for word about her missing son. Here now is Jules Knox with Surrey 6, the gang hit.
We have 6 male adults inside of an apartment on the 15th floor. All what we're saying are victims of homicide. We're unable at this time to identify race. We're unable to identify their manner of in which they met their demise.
They asked if during the day yesterday if we saw anything abnormal, if we saw anybody that didn't look like they belonged in the building. Scary because you don't know if the person's still there or not.
She says police came knocking at 3 a.m., questioned her, and told her to keep her doors and windows locked.
You don't know, it could have been an anonymous thing and it could have happened to anybody, right? In that building, so it's kind of scary living there now.
They've been told to lock their doors and windows and that the killer might still be in the building.
And that's certainly, yes, the individual responsible. We haven't determined whether this is a home invasion style robbery, or we haven't, or whether it's a targeted hit, or whether it's a murder-suicide. All those things are on the table.
In my heart of hearts, because where Christopher is concerned, there's never silence. Christopher is that type of guy that talks. Mommy, I'm running late. Mommy this, mommy that. But it is silent. Nothing, not a peep from Christopher. Morning comes, 8 o'clock. I'm out of the house. I'm going back to the lobby. I'm going to talk to these people. And I looked at them and I said, my son, I told you, my son hasn't come back. They played the basketball game, they lost, he did not come. I said, I rang 2 hospitals, they can't find Christopher. No one can find Christopher, so now tell me, did he ever leave the 15th floor? They said, if Christopher is there, we will let you know. And I said, you promise? And he said, I promise.
Tonight on the NewsHour.
Unraveling a multiple murder in Whalley. Who's responsible and why do investigators believe the victims were targeted? John Daly joins us live with the latest on the investigation. And John, it seems that the more we learn, the less this looks like a domestic situation.
Well, I'd have to say that's right, Chris. We've got 6 dead old men, not likely a family, and we have investigators from across the Lower Mainland poring over this building all day long, hunting for clues. And so it's starting to look like this is perhaps the latest move in the ongoing Vancouver drug shooting war.
The whole of Saturday comes, not a word from the cops. And I'm glued to the news.
Residents say more than one grow-up has been discovered in the building, and this Whalley neighborhood is trying to shake off a negative reputation.
We've been doing a lot of development up there. There's a lot of new residents in the area. So it's really transformed a lot. It's not, you can't equate it to where we've been, 15, 20 years ago.
While the hunt for information and evidence continues, the bodies of the 6 victims remain inside, and they may not be removed until perhaps even tomorrow. Also, some of the residents are complaining that their hot water's been cut and they can't get into the underground parkade because the police have taken it over. They're perhaps looking for evidence from the cars of the victims, maybe even the car of the killer.
The reporters, some say this, some say that, drug deal gone bad, and you're listening to everything and you're saying, no, really, we're not a crime family.
The 6 bodies from the Surrey slaying laid in the bloody apartment from Friday until Sunday. Officers worked around the clock to collect forensic evidence and other clues from the crime scene.
We have a sense of who is inside. We are currently working to try and notify next of kin, locate next of kin.
Another night goes by, not a word. The cops don't call you. Sunday comes, the news comes on that they're taking the bodies out. I am so frustrated, so mad. I got in the car, I drove as fast as I could, parked my car where the cop was. I said, they're taking the bodies out, and that could be my son's body. Do you understand what I'm saying? I told him, you can arrest me, but I'm going in there. I walked through and same 3 detectives. You were supposed to call me. Is my Christopher up there? Are you taking him out? And he didn't answer me. My entire being just went on fire. I just wanted to die. You know, Christopher's my heartbeat. You hold this emotion up in you whole night. You don't want to go to the dark side. There is this hope that I will see my son again. When you give out your son's picture, when you describe your son's body, you're describing him in the past. Now I'm starting to think, we're going to be part of this story. If Christopher doesn't walk up to this doorstep, this is what our story is going to be.
Two guns were found on the 15th floor of the Balmoral Tower. But police didn't let the public know that they'd found the murder weapons or if there were any suspects.
Late this afternoon, the 6th and final body was removed from the scene, and tonight we've learned there may be an innocent victim among the dead. Reporter John Daly has been covering this story, and he joins us now with the latest. Now, John, what do we know about this possible innocent victim?
Well, Chris, we believe that he's part of a family-run business, a business which was servicing the natural gas fireplaces in the tower where the slaughter took place.
So we knew that there was a furnace repair guy, and of course it had initially come in as a potential mass casualty gas leak. We realized, you know, it's very unlikely that the furnace repairman is some kind of a nefarious bad guy. One of the cameramen kind of snuck around the side and got a shot of the vehicle, and we started to chase it up.
His death came as a shock to those who knew Ed Schellenberg, like Evan Smith, an Abbotsford business owner who called Schellenberg one of his best contractors.
Well, he was always an easy person to deal with, to do business with. He was very forthcoming, very punctual, very honest, easy to laugh, nice guy. Gas fitters are in high demand, obviously, so he was a busy guy, 12, 14 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week.
I'm in shock. Part of me still doesn't want to believe it, and I guess I'm fluctuating between grief and anger about the whole thing. At 2 o'clock, I guess most of the units were finished, and he sent the boys home early. It could have been a lot worse.
Now the autopsies must begin. The official causes of death detailed, fingerprints, DNA, and fibers obtained from the victims. This will be a thorough and painstaking process, with 6 families getting the official bad news today.
So they took us to the gaming room. a ton of RCMP officers. The victim services was there. The first few words were like, we really apologize, but Christopher is among the dead. Nothing came out of my mouth. Nothing. It was just sheer silence. Christopher's father was like a statue. Wow. What do we say? What do we ask? By the time we got back to where we were staying, there was a police officer waiting for us. So I said, okay, I want to know, how did my son end up dying in that apartment? I want to know, why was he killed? And I said, you know, this is our bank card, this is our credit card, this is our SIN ID. I want you to go and look into our bank accounts. I want you to investigate our background. And when you come back to me, you make sure that you declare my son innocent.
And so you wanted them to see all your financials just to prove you and Christopher had nothing to do with?
Christopher, myself, and his dad. I want the entire family to be cleared.
Residents of the floor where the bodies were discovered are being allowed back in, but police are still conducting a canvass and processing the crime scene. And so far, there is no suspect, not even a description of the killer or killers.
I think we live in this CSI culture. We watch TV and people think that a complex homicide investigation is going to be conducted in 1 hour. It's not. In order to do them proper and to be fact-based, to collect vast amounts of information, take statements, analyze what people are saying, compare them. Regrettably, it's just not like we see on CSI. It doesn't work like that.
Now the word has spread, Christopher is dead. And I said to this policeman, I said, I'm sick and tired of answering questions about how did my son end up in 1505. Tuesday, they had the press conference, and they had already declared Ed Schellenberg innocent.
It is our wish to make perfectly clear that Ed was caught in circumstances that spun out of control, ending in his death because of where he needed to be to do his job.
And then they declared Christopher innocent.
Police suggest he may have stumbled onto the crime scene and was murdered. A cousin spoke on the family's behalf at the police news conference.
The loss of Christopher Mohan is a great tragedy, and the family is still in a state of shock and disbelief. He was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Police identified the other victims as 19-year-old Ryan Bartolomeo, 22-year-old Eddie Narong, and brothers Michael and Corey Lai, who were both in their 20s. A note that although the brother's last name is spelled Lal, it's pronounced Lai. In this story, people use Lal and Lai interchangeably.
Many of them had faced drug charges, 2 of them weapons charges, but numerous charges have been dropped, and for the handful of convictions, no serious sentences.
I could Google their charges. I could Google their activities. I was so shocked that our justice system was so lenient. It was almost like a revolving door. People coming in, people going out.
Stating they've made no arrests and have no suspects, police are now appealing for criminals to turn in the killers.
Many persons who live a criminal lifestyle would not normally speak to the police. I believe in this case those people will be appalled by the cowardly acts of the perpetrators of this event. The despicable persons responsible for these crimes do not deserve their respect They do not deserve their loyalty, and they certainly do not deserve their protection.
3 days after the massacre, police suddenly started searching the Stanley apartment building, a few blocks away from the scene of the slaughter.
This is the third gangland-style slaying in Vancouver, and police are still investigating this one. They have been scouring 2 different locations.
Shoulder to shoulder, a group of RCMP officers scoured the grounds of Stanley Tower off 148th Street in Surrey, looking for evidence under vehicles and in the grass and shrubs of the high-rise complex. It's all part of a massive and growing investigation into the murder of 6 men last Friday at Balmoral Tower, 10 blocks away.
This is a great big homicide, and it's an extraordinary case which calls for extraordinary measures. And we've taken a look at a map, and we've basically drawn a circle around an area, and we're going to do an exterior search of that complete area.
Armed with a search warrant, police have been here since late Monday night, thoroughly searching the property, going through garbage cans and dumpsters, even conducting a grid search of the parkade.
I'm over the parking area, and I see a lot of people going in and out at nighttime, like 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning.
So you think that there is a drug dealer in the building?
I definitely do, yes, I do.
The 16th floor is off limits, with police officers standing guard and all peepholes on the doors of residences and suites covered up.
My next door neighbour said he went out on Monday night to get some cigarettes at 10:30, and there was one with a semi-automatic rifle asking him where he was going, so I don't know what it is. It's, like I say, it's nothing minor, let's put it that way.
More than a week passed after the murders. Police continued to hunt for suspects and evidence, but there were no arrests. The families of the victims prepared to say their final goodbyes.
At least 1,000 people turned out for Ed Schellenberg's memorial service this morning, and it's no surprise really, considering the type of person he was and the circumstances of his death. We learned this morning that Schellenberg touched countless lives through the way he lived his life. He was a man of great integrity, we're told, and a man of great faith.
But now I see.
He always had time for anyone who wanted to talk to him, always willing to make new friends. He didn't discriminate against age. You could be 2 or 92, and he'd be interested in you.
55-year-old Ed Schellenberg was an avid outdoorsman who loved to hunt and fish. His last camping trip just last month with a 17-year-old son, seen here on the right, and 2 good friends.
The whole camping trip for Ed was really about spending time and bonding with his son.
Our loss is at this point unspeakable, really. We just are reeling. There's a message in his death that we don't know how many days we're going to live this life, and so we've got to make the most of it. And Ed did that. He lived that out.
The families of even those that were involved in the drug trade hurt no less than we do. You know, these are young kids. You know, one of them was 19. I mean, with the fact that he may have been involved in something he shouldn't be, you know, that's immaterial to the family. They're grieving just the same way we are.
He always had a smile on his face. That's how friends described 22-year-old Chris Moen. Chris came to Canada from Fiji when he was 11 and was an honors student at Queen Elizabeth Secondary in 2003. Moen's friends asking how such a bad thing could happen to such a good person.
Everybody's here to pay respects for a great friend, person who was there for everybody else. We should be playing basketball tomorrow and talking about our game plan tomorrow for the championship game. It's tough not hearing his voice every week and not seeing him in the gym or just picturing his smile just going to pop up somewhere.
This is my alone moment with my son. You could see a fist mark on his face. What they didn't do to him. What they didn't do to him. They did everything. I just held him and I cried and I cried. I just wanted to die right there. My justice for Christopher started on his funeral day. When you see your own son decay, it stirs this dagger in your heart to say, I am, till the day I die, I am going to be his voice. Christopher was born May 31st, 1985. He was a bundle of joy. As long as he was fed, he was content. Every night, as old as he was, before he went to sleep, he gave me a kiss on my cheek. Good night, Mom. It was like the best feeling in the world. When Christopher was around, there was music, there was blah, 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 blah. It was always about, let's do things, let's be together. At that time, I was working full-time in a financial industry, and I was studying to become a fashion designer. It was my passion. Christopher was my model for a men's suit. When they saw Christopher, they called me and they said to me, who was your model? I said, that's my son. And they said, oh my God. And this fashion design sent us a letter to hire Christopher and I both together. I'm telling you, our life, future ahead was opening up to be so beautiful. We were seeing the dreams that we were building for ourselves. Christopher was like on top of the moon. October 19th, everything stood still for us. And you know, you took the most precious person out of our lives. He was at home, in his home. You came to our home. You should have stayed where you were. Don't bring your war to our houses.
Two families brought together through a loss of innocence. Ed Schellenberg and Christopher Mohan, both executed for being in the wrong place at the wrong time as the gang war escalated.
The system is way out of control. I think the gangsters have a lot of freedom in our province.
The judiciary are habitually bailing these people out, bailing them out.
Huge numbers of gangs, people who are extremely violent, more violent than police have ever seen before, very unpredictable, younger.
The drug dealers who were the target of this killing, they should have been in jail. And there should have been no shooting at the Balmoral Towers whatsoever. But they weren't in jail because the police have been very, very ineffective at dealing with street drug traffic. And why that is beyond me, because it's dial-a-dope. You get a phone number from somebody, you call them up, they deliver the drugs to your house, and you give them a lot of money. So you would think they'd be able to infiltrate this system pretty easily and take these people down. And had they been more effective, maybe innocent people like Ed Schellenberg and Chris Mohan wouldn't be dead.
I was so shocked that our justice system was so lenient. It was almost like a revolving door. To the point, these people had become so emboldened that they walked to the doorstep of my home, where Christopher and I are supposed to be safe and secure, and stole his life from him. And I still blame the justice system.
Welcome back. As the investigation drags on for well over a year, there's a surprising break in the case. Here now is Jules Knox with Surrey 6, the gang hit.
Tomorrow is Mother's Day, and I don't have Chris with me.
Home life became very unlivable. Christopher's father had to leave to go and grieve on his own, and I was left on my own to pick up the pieces. Not did I only lose Christopher, I lost myself. I lost all what we wanted to do. I lost my marriage. I lost everything. I became this person who's building her life from zero upwards.
It doesn't seem like an year. Honestly, it doesn't. It just seems like it happened yesterday.
Today at the crime scene, 2 crosses mark the deaths of Corey and Michael Lal, left by someone who cares. 2 church services were held to remember the innocent, one in Abbotsford for the Schellenbergs, and one in Surrey for the Mohans.
Nobody's been charged, nobody's been brought to justice. There are lots of people out there who know what happened. There are lots of people who have full knowledge of who the perpetrators of this horrific crime are, but they don't come forward to help the police.
You know, when we went past the first-year anniversary of the mass murder, we all did stories, and people were saying, well, what's up with this? You know, are you ever going to catch these killers? It looked like there was no progress at all. All we knew is that the RCMP kept saying, you know, they had like a team of 100 people working on it, both, you know, uniform and plain clothes. And I suspect they did. But nothing was coming out. Nothing was either leaking out or being said publicly in terms of what progress, if any, was being made on this horrific mass murder. It was pretty much dead silence, and there was a lot of pressure on the RCMP to come up with something.
These investigations do require a very high level of proof, and when they move forward with the case, they have to be able to prove unequivocally who murdered Chris Mohan and the other 5 people.
At one of the busiest malls in the Lower Mainland, the bullets started flying at 5:20 Tuesday afternoon. 21-year-old Rafael Baldini was gunned down in the parking lot of Guilford Mall. There is a link between Baldini and the gangland slayings of the Surrey Six.
Mr. Baldini was the renter of the apartment in which the murder took place.
The mother of Chris Mohan says she's frustrated yesterday's Guilford shooting victim was out of jail despite several gun charges.
This guy was a potential witness to our case. A potential witness I was looking forward to hear from. But today, him and his information is gone. So I'm really mad. I'm disappointed that this has happened, and whoever that judge is, I hope he's searching his conscience to say, what have I done?
There was certainly a palpable fear that somehow some of the witnesses might in fact end up dead and be useless when it came to the court case, if it ever got to court.
Some allege that a gang called the Red Scorpions is responsible. Internet chat rooms allege the notorious Bacon brothers could somehow be involved in what was dubbed BC's worst ever gang-related slaying.
You got Jamie Bacon and his 2 brothers. This was a crime family that lived in Abbotsford.
Are you as bad as people make you out to be?
No. They had basically bought into the Red Scorpions and effectively taken over the Red Scorpions, and they ran what is known as dial-a-dope lines. So, you know, you wanted cocaine, ecstasy, you could call these guys up. Even though it was low-level, street-level drug dealing, it was pretty well organized.
It was April 2009, and I was having a mass for Christopher at his resting place. Even the RCMP was there, and then by the time we finished, the detective who was attached to me came up to me and he shook my hand and he said, "Eileen, you would not believe what we did today."
I was assigned to go to Vancouver City Hall to cover some sort of a news conference. I was about halfway to Vancouver City Hall when I got an anonymous phone call saying, "Be in courtroom 20 at BC Supreme Court at 9:30. It was about 9:22 in the morning when I got that call. The person wouldn't tell me why I should be there. They just said, "Don't miss this." So I pulled a U-turn. I went into courtroom number 20. Then they brought in an accused, a guy in an orange jumpsuit who had like serious tattoos up the back of his neck. Looked like a gang guy to me, but I didn't know who he was. Then in come the RCMP, 1 officer on either side of the family members from the Balmoral Tower. And a lot of them I didn't know, but I did know Eileen Mohan. And as soon as I saw her, I made the connection. I said, obviously this has got to do with the Surrey 6 murders. Then the person who is now known as Person X, we're not allowed to say his name, stands up and pleads guilty to 3 of the 6 murders. And like, I just nearly fell over. And then, boom, it's over.
The name of the man who pleaded guilty was later put under a publication ban. He became known as Person X, and he admitted to the second-degree murder of Ryan Bartolomeo, Michael Lai, and Christopher Mohan.
The families of 5 of the victims, dozens of them escorted into court by I-hit detectives, cried and howled as the word guilty was pronounced.
Person X, he's the one who put a bullet through my son's head. He didn't want to go on first degree, he wanted to be in the second degree. The police had to have a talk with us, telling us if we give this person a second-degree murder charge, he opens the door for the information to flow out. I wanted everybody to be caught who had a hand in the killing of my innocent son. I thought to myself, okay, I will make a deal with the devil. And I signed off on it.
This is obviously a huge break in the case, and I think it's unfolding as we speak.
This case that's been, hidden from public view and stalled, apparently, all of a sudden is bursting wide open. It was obvious that this person not only was copying a plea, but was flipping on whoever else was involved in this thing. I ran upstairs as fast as I could and called the desk and said, hey, where's Jamie Bacon? Can we get a camera there? Because he's been mentioned in BC Supreme Court by a guy who's pleading guilty to 3 murders.
Our John Daly was exclusively at Supreme Court this morning to hear the plea. He joins us now live from RCMP headquarters with more on this. John.
Randine, I was in court this morning, in fact, the only reporter to be there in the high security courtroom, courtroom 20, when murder charges were read out, 3 counts against Red Scorpion, that in connection with the Surrey 6 slaughter. At the same time, his brother gang member, Jamie Bacon, seen here at his Abbotsford home, was being taken down by heavily armed members of the emergency response team.
A note that, although the name of the man who pleaded guilty to the 3 murders was reportable at the time, because of a publication ban imposed later, we've had to censor our old stories.
Jamie Bacon gets taken down by an emergency response team, and we are the only ones with a video camera there. So it was a monstrously big story. It was an unbelievably big scoop. Honestly, Jules, it was scary doing it.
The public doesn't know what's been going on behind the scenes, and I guess we're just now, when you saw those pictures, just now starting to get a sense of how it's all coming together, how big it is.
I can tell you that as we speak right now, there are additional arrests that are taking place, and there will be additional arrests throughout the weekend in connection to this file.
The police knew within hours or days who their suspects were and focused on them, but there were not arrests on the murder until 2 years after the fact.
Police continue to round up other gang members, and as the accused head to trial, startling new details are revealed.
We have investigators that are overseas right now at the Philippines.
In this case, the police realized to actually attribute planning, premeditation, and intention to kill, they needed gang insiders.
Plus, an unexpected twist throws the whole case into jeopardy.
Then you've got, the gangsters, standing up in court and ratting each other out. And then, you find out that the cops have been doing some funny business with potential witnesses.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with a bombshell development in the Surrey 6 murders, and it may have disastrous consequences for the investigation.
They had search warrants, wiretaps, surveillance. It was a monster scandal.
People who've been following this case have likened it to some kind of mafia movie, but of course, it's all very real.
They kill one another for perception, for power.
The Surrey 6 investigation, it's multi hundreds of millions of dollars.
That's in part 2 of the Surrey 6. I'm Anthony Robart. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat. Want more episodes of Crime Beat? Listen to the Crime Beat podcast now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. And for past episodes of Crime Beat, go to the Global TV app, visit globaltv.com, or check out our Crime Beat YouTube page.